my channel. If you're new here, my name is Kayla and I'm here with some literary goodness today, and if you're not new, thanks for coming back. I really appreciate it. So today, as you know by the title, we have a book review. So I did one of these at the beginning of last month, the beginning of November, for the Guinevere Deception, but we're going to be talking about a new installment in a series I've talked about a lot on my channel that I really love. But I really like these books. I've read a couple of them by the same author in the same series, and that is the Twisted Tellings or Twisted Tales series. I always want to say tellings because they're retellings, but it's the Twisted Tales series that was started by Liz Braswell and is now being continued by Jen Kalanita. They're a YA series that takes the fairy tale tellings from Disney movies and twists them a little bit into a totally new story, and they're super cool. So today I have the Frozen one that came out in October, so about a month ago, maybe a month and a half. Conceal, Don't Feel, which was written by Jen Kalanita, and we're going to talk about it today because I have a lot of thoughts. Frozen 2 just came out. If you didn't see my thoughts video with a makeup tutorial reviewing the ColourPop Frozen 2 collection, I will leave that link down below, but I will also leave my reviews for Part of Your World, the Ariel retelling, and Tale as Old as Time, the Beauty and the Beast retelling, which I did a couple months ago and then like a year ago. So let's get into this review. So each Twisted Tales book has like a tagline twist. You can find it on the cover right away, so you kind of know the premise of what you're getting into and how different the story is going to be. So for Conceal, Don't Feel, the tagline is, what if Anna and Elsa never knew each other? Which I got this a couple of months ago. I got this maybe in like July. And I looked at it and I was like, they didn't know each other. We wouldn't have a movie. And I kind of took it as they never knew each other, which is not the twist. So I'm going to explain the premise to you because it makes a lot more sense once you actually figure out what's going on. But first, this is the cover. They all kind of look like this with the silhouette of the character, the princess. So let's just talk about the basic premise of the story. So it jumps in time a little bit. So we start with meeting Elsa, who is becoming the Queen of Arendelle, but Anna is decidedly not in the picture. We don't know what happened to her. We come to find out that, kind of like in the first movie, when Anna and Elsa are playing and Anna first gets struck by Elsa's powers, that the only way that she can be saved in this book is for them to be separated entirely, so they don't risk it happening again. So basically, Anna is sent to live with a family friend of the Queen, Iduna, in a different town. So they grow up completely not knowing each other. Anna is aware that she's adopted. You know, once Anna has to start to remember Elsa and their magic on her own, it should naturally break. And if they meet each other before that, Anna will die and become frozen. Another twist that's different from the movie, and it's not spoiling anything because these are very obvious things from the beginning, but Hans is pursuing Elsa directly instead of her, well, still her throne, but Hans doesn't meet Anna until later in the story, but he spends the majority of the book trying to win and court Elsa, which is different and weird because Elsa, I feel like, is very a romantic character in the movies, so seeing her like kind of being courted by someone is weird. So let's get into some pros and cons. I think we'll do. So one con I noticed in this book was the way it was written. It was very hard to determine their ages. It was said expressly eventually in the story. So in the first couple of chapters, Anna is 15 and Elsa is 18, but I literally thought they were like 12 because they were written so like immaturely. Like they didn't seem to speak like an 18-year-old would. They didn't really think like an 18-year-old would. So I thought they were like 12 or 9. They end up being 18 and 15, and then as the book goes on, Elsa turns 21 and Anna turns 18, and even still it seems like they're at most like 14 or 15. So that was kind of a downside for me. It just didn't feel super realistic because the characters weren't really behaving their age, if that makes sense. I will say another con for me, I have notes, I've been keeping track of thoughts, so I'm sorry if I'm reading them, but it takes a very long time for Anna and Elsa to meet. In this book, I think it's not until like 3/4 of the way through the book that they actually meet. So you're going a very long time waiting for them to meet, and when they finally do, it feels kind of random. Like, the instance that they meet just kind of happens. It doesn't really like build naturally with the flow of the plot. Like, they just kind of stumble upon each other, you know what I mean? But you get like 3/4 of the way through the book and you're still just kind of like waiting for them to meet, which is a little bit frustrating, but it does read really quickly, so it's not like it drags on forever or anything like that. There is a point where Kristoff and Anna are traveling together, and they're going from the town of Harmon, where Anna was raised, to Arendelle, which is like a day or two journey. And a lot can happen in that. A lot of really important dialogue could happen, a lot of really important plot, a realization, anything could happen in that time. I feel like as a writer, a day or two is really valuable time that you don't want to just forget about. And this one kind of just breezed over like 2 solid days where like they were traveling, blah, 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 they leave on their adventure within pages. So it's not even a chapter break. It's within pages. The journey from Harmon to Arendelle was long and difficult. I would have liked to see that. I would have liked to see what Anna, maybe something that she saw, like she saw the Northern Lights or something, and have her describe it. Her and Kristoff have a really deep conversation where they start to develop feelings for each other or something. I feel like that was a good chunk of time that could have been used more effectively. I just kind of wish we'd seen a little bit more of it. One thing I will say is that you get multiple perspectives in this book, and in every Twisted Tales book you're going to get multiple perspectives from the different characters. In this one, we mainly see Anna and Elsa. We see a couple of Hans, maybe like 2, and 1 Kristoff. I really wanted to see more of Kristoff's thoughts, because we really only get one chapter at the end where you know that they're falling in love and he's falling for her. So I would have liked to see his kind of thoughts through that. I thought that would have been a nice romantic touch. And I also really wanted to see Olaf. Olaf is such a funny character and he's so cute and sweet. I would have loved to see like maybe 1 or 2 chapters where he's just like in his own little world and like happy and not really totally understanding the seriousness of everything going on. Like, that comic relief I think might have been nice. The curse that is placed on them is difficult to understand and not explained super well the first time. So when they go to Grandpappy to get the ice removed from Anna's brain at the beginning, he kind of explains the curse, but not really where it came from. I had to read those chapters a couple of times to understand it, so that was a little bit of a sticky part of it. I think it was a good inclusion and a good way to that's the whole root of the twist, is this curse that they can't be together and they can't know each other, or they risk Anna getting hurt again and actually dying. But I think it could have been explained a little bit more clearly. So those are kind of the only real things I had problems with. So now we're going to go back through with some of my pros for this book, which I think definitely outweigh the cons in this one. I feel like with all of these books and with a lot of the books that I enjoy, our worldview of Arendelle and Anna and Elsa is just expanded upon so much more in these books. We get to see so much more of Arendelle. We get to see like the shops that, you know, Anna and Elsa walk by. We get to see where Anna grew up, the separate town, the kind of lifestyle that they live. We get to see way more of Norse culture than we ever get in the movies, which is so cool and interesting to me. But even in the more emotional scenes, like the scene where Elsa is told that her parents have died, you feel that emotion so much more strongly. Like, she has such a more visceral, emotional expression when she finds out, and it's really truly heartbreaking. How you see how devastated she is, and you just kind of see her shut down in the movie, which is also a valid reaction, but this one felt more real, this reaction to learning that your parents have passed away. But on the other side, like other emotional moments, like when Elsa's building her ice palace, it's so beautiful. Like, it's such a beautiful scene because, you know, it's described in the way that Elsa's thought process as she's building it. She doesn't just kind of like poof make this beautiful castle, this palace. She is actually like making it to reflect the castle of Arendelle and where she grew up, and like traditional architecture and stuff, and you don't see that in the movie, but that's a thought process that we get through the book, which is really, really cool to see. There are so many little like Easter eggs and niche things from the movie, the original movie, that just like make me so happy. I don't know, it's such like a Disney nerd thing, but like the subtle quick little references here and there really, really like make the magic of Disney come into this book, which is really nice. So Anna, when she grows up, is brought up by bakers, and she learns to bake, and her favorite cookies to bake are snowman cookies. She's obviously making Olaf, and she doesn't remember him, but it's just such a cute little thing. Like, she just makes a bunch of Olaf cookies. The different songs throughout the movie, because we all know Frozen had an amazing soundtrack. Cal and Anita picked out like certain lyric lines and would just like put them into conversation or just put them into a description, and you would just be like, that's from Love is an Open Door. Like, you would just get so excited because those little Easter eggs are just like, it's like little seeds of the original into this new story, which I loved. But it also elaborated on Elsa a lot, and Elsa's emotional health, which I thought was interesting. Like, you see her depression a lot more clearly, which I think was obviously in the movie, but not the focus, I guess. But in this book, when we're in Elsa's mind, we kind of see how she's thinking and feeling a lot more, and like she gets to a point where she realized that this is her fault, you know, the curse. But if she can't be with Anna, her last family member, she doesn't want to exist. So that's a really dark point. And it also explains her powers in a different way with a source of them that's not really described in the movie. Like, we know that Elsa can just kind of produce ice and snow at will, but sometimes it just happens when she panics. And in the book, it's actually described as like a physical manifestation of her anxiety and her panic. So if you can imagine that, like, every time you feel anxious or panicky, a physical response that lets everyone know, like, that's really scary and hard, you know? So I thought that was a really good way to put it. It kind of makes us empathize with Elsa a little bit more. But I feel so sad for Elsa in this book, even more than in the movie. She insists that, like, it is her fault that her parents died. She thinks she's killed Anna. Like, she thinks it's her fault that they're cursed and that they've had to be separated. She can't even fix it because she has to wait for Anna to realize. She definitely doesn't believe that she can be a queen to Arendelle and rule well. She doesn't think she's capable of any of that. She's very, very self-conscious and insecure. And, you know, she completely isolates herself. And there are people trying to take advantage of her. Hans, the Duke of Wesselton, is way more of an asshole in the book. I, like, hated Wesselton more than Hans in the book. He had like 4 minutes of being a weasel in the movie. But, like, half this book, he was just a raging ass. And I just hated him so much. Like, I never thought I would hate a character more than Hans in this movie book series. The Duke of Wesselton can jump off a bridge. I did not like him at all. He was awful. But, like, people like him, Hans are trying to take advantage of her. Hans is the first person in a while that she's felt, like, loved by, almost. And to find it's all a lie. He just wants her throne, kind of like in the movie, is really, really sad to see. So really quick, I did like watching this version of Anna and Kristoff fall in love a lot more. They had met like a couple of times, kind of happenstance in Harmon. They talked a little bit and they kind of were friends, and then they go on this adventure together and they fall in love. And Anna is only interested in Hans for like maybe 3 minutes, and then she's like, nah, Kristoff, which I liked a lot better. It was just more genuine and it felt more real, so I liked that. And I liked seeing them fall in love this way and getting kind of their thoughts, and the more smaller subtle moments I really liked too. So definitely liked Hans, Anna, and Kristoff a lot more in this one. And this is kind of the biggest pro I have for this book, and it definitely makes it. I really like the way the spell, the magic, and the curse are set up in this book, because it brings Anna and Elsa together. In this book, they have to wait until Anna remembers them, and then they can be together again, and then they can turn off the winter in Arendelle. In the movie, it forces them apart. And in this book, I think it tries to force them apart by keeping them separated, but in the end, they have to come together. In the movie, they're separated just because Elsa runs away, and Elsa doesn't want to hurt her. But it's never two-sided for them to come together, you know what I mean? Like, Anna is trying to find Elsa to help her, to get her to come back, and to take away the winter in Arendelle. But Elsa is never trying to find Anna. She's trying to distance herself as much as possible. In this book, Elsa and Anna are both actively trying to reunite themselves together and bring themselves together, and I think making the sisterhood even more of the focus. By bringing them together and making their goal to come together, you're bringing the sisterhood back together, which I think is really special and a lot stronger, and I think it shows more that love between sisters is more powerful than like any, and that sisterhood is so important, more than, say, the movie. Even though for a lot of this book it felt like they were only sisters by blood because they hadn't been raised together and they didn't know each other, that once they remembered, you just see how pure that love is, and it's really, really powerful to see. So those are my pros and cons for this book. I thought that the twist was really, really well thought out. Kalanina had to do so much work to put this together. It was such like a complicated twist. She basically rewrote the movie, which is impressive because she did it really freaking well. But she had to reorder the movie events, and it all worked. Like, I couldn't really find plot holes, and I think it's easy to find plot holes with books that have twists and retellings that are so complicated like this one. But everything kind of tied up neatly with a bow, and I think she filled all her plot holes, and she did a really, really good job, and she made an awesome story out of it. At first, I thought that this was the dumbest twist ever, because I was like, we don't have a movie if they don't know each other. But our twist made sense, and it was really complex, and it kept me, like, wanting to read. Like, I wanted to know more about this curse. I wanted to know if they would finally get together. I would want to know if they would remember each other. I wanted to know if there was going to be a betrayal at the end, like in the movie. I wanted to know so much, but it was so well thought out, and the effort is so obvious in this book. The research into Norse culture she had to do, the descriptions of the scenes that she had to do, the background into Anna and Elsa's family history and their childhood traditions and things like that. That creative aspect was so detailed, creating these character relationships and having them evolve in a new way. I think it's really hard when you work in the constraints of a world that's already been created. You don't have that freedom. And I asked Holly Black about this in our interview, and she said it was easier because you know the expectation, which I guess would be true for this, but to create such a unique plot out of a movie that's already been made, I think is really, really hard. And like I said, she basically had to rewrite this movie, and I think she did a fantastic job with it. The world building, so impressive and beautiful. The characters, I thought, were even more well-rounded and fleshed out in the book, especially Elsa being inside her head. I think gives us a lot more of an insight into who she is. I feel on screen she's a very distant character, but you get to know her so much more in the book, which I thought was really lovely. The romance between Anna and Kristoff, I think, is better. Olaf is still just as funny in this book. there are just so many aspects about it that I liked. This sisterhood, sisterly love is so strong in this book and such an important part of it that I really, really appreciated, and I think that you guys will too. I think it's a fantastic addition to the Twisted Tales series, and probably one of the best ones I've read yet. I don't think it's the best. I think the best I've read is still the Beauty and the Beast one, but this one is probably a close second, if not tied. I think it just is such a great addition to the series and really just expands the world in such a way that you don't want to leave. And it reads super quickly. Like, it is a you can't put it down book. I read it in literally less than 24 hours, and it's only about 300 pages or so, 312, but it is such a good book, and I was so happy with it. I gave it 5 out of stars. 5 out of stars. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars, and I really, really liked it, and I think that you guys will too. So if you've liked my previous Twisted Tales reviews, and if you've liked the books, if you've read them, I think you'll really like the Frozen one. It's also the kind of year to read them, which is kind of perfect because, you know, it's winter time. The Frozen 2 movie just came out, that I think that this is kind of like the perfect time to read them. So like I said, the pros definitely outweigh the cons. This is a 5-star read, and I would highly recommend it to you guys. So those are all of my thoughts for this book. So I hope you found this review helpful. I tried to keep it short and sweet, but I hope you enjoyed this, and if you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comment section down below. I'd be happy to answer them. Let me know what other videos you want to see, any other books you want me to review, any questions you have about this series, or even ideas. Someone on my last video commented ideas that they had for the Twisted Tales, so I'd love to see some more ideas like that. But yeah, make sure to give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, and subscribe before you leave so you can see more videos like this. And go follow me on all my social media at RoyReadingCo, Twitter, Tumblr, Instagram, Pinterest, Goodreads as RoyReadingCo. And I will see you guys soon for another one. Bye.